My name is Joel Spicer. I work for the Stop TB Partnership, which is housed at the World Health Organization in Geneva. And the reason that I'm here is because we're having our main board meeting, the first time it's ever happened in Canada, coming up in July, and to raise awareness about tuberculosis. So what a lot of people don't know about TB is that it's still a burning problem, and many people think that in fact it's something we had that was eliminated around World War II sometime. But in fact, over the next decade, unless we take greater action on this issue, 14 million people are going to die from a disease that is preventable and curable. And that's unacceptable. So if you think about the connections also with other diseases, you realize TB is not something that happens in isolation, although it's particularly devastating in terms of poverty and in terms of vulnerable groups around the world, because TB is a child of poverty. It's the connections between TB and poverty are very well known. A lot of people that are struggling are forced to pay catastrophic health expenditures when they get TB, and it pulls their entire family back into poverty. So if you think about HIV, for example, the connections between TB and HIV and that co-epidemic are well known. They're particularly acute in Africa. But while many people know about HIV/AIDS and the success in the fight to address that issue, what they're not aware of is that tuberculosis is the leading killer of people with HIV, and this is avoidable. So basically 4 million people living with HIV will die in the next decade from tuberculosis unless we change things. And we have to, because diseases don't discriminate. They come together quite happily in people. But the fight against the two diseases have not yet fully aligned, so there's more we can do there. There are some exciting developments, and the reason why there's a crossroads moment coming up for tuberculosis is because for the first time in decades, we have new tools that are beginning to come online that will help us fight TB. One of them is Gene Expert, which is a molecular diagnostic technology that can tell people if they may have drug-resistant forms of tuberculosis in 90 minutes, a quick test, whereas before that person would have to wait 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. In many cases, their results were coming back after they had already died. Again, a marker that something's not quite right here. But that is a positive step, and it's being rolled out in developing countries all over the world, with concessional pricing having been achieved so far, which is a good sign. In addition, there are new drugs that are beginning to come online and under development. One of them is bedaquiline, and people are very excited about the potential for this drug to shorten the treatment regimen for drug-resistant TB. If you can imagine it, right now, if someone has multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, they have to be under treatment for 18 to 24 months. And the drugs themselves are toxic, and they're very hard to go through. That's one of the challenges we have. So until we have new tools in the fight against TB, we're going to continue to fight this war with muskets and sticks, basically, which is what we've been doing. So new drugs, new diagnostics, new vaccine. That would be the holy grail if we could get a new vaccine, and there are some partners that are working on that very hard. So that's exciting too. Another thing that people aren't aware of, and when I come to Canada, I'm always struck by it, is that most people aren't aware of the incredible leadership that Canada has been playing over the past decade in innovation in tuberculosis. And I'll give you two examples. The first one is the Global Tuberculosis Drug Facility, which was set up by Canada. It's in the Stop TB Partnership. And the purpose of this mechanism was to just do bulk procurement, and through economies of scale, reduce the price of each patient treatment for tuberculosis. And so far, over 20 million patient treatments have been delivered through this mechanism. Canada, over the last decade, has contributed over $140 million, but they have leveraged an additional $800 million from other donors and through direct procurement. This is a success story that not many people know, and we need Canadians to be aware of it, because that's something we should be proud of. The second thing is called TB Reach. And TB Reach was also created with a $120 million grant from Canada through the Stop TB Partnership to address one of the main problems that there is in the global fight against TB. And that is the fact that every year there are 9 million new cases of TB in the world. And the public health system and the official system is only finding 6 million of them. And that is flatlining. So what we need to do is invest in new innovations in delivery, in increasing access to vulnerable groups, because those people that have limited access are the ones that have high rates, are the ones that are dying, and are the ones that are transmitting heavily. Each infectious case can transmit between 10 and 15, can infect 10 to 15 people per year. So if you think about the math behind TB, when the risk factor is breathing, not behavior, it's terrifying. You know, what my grandma said was true. A stitch in time saves 9. And we have to get on top of TB now, or it's just going to get more and more expensive tomorrow. And that's never been clearer in a way with another disease, especially as multi-drug resistant tuberculosis is increasing. And as an aside, if you think about dollars and cents, the cost to treat a patient in terms of drugs alone for drug susceptible TB, so-called normal TB, is $30. And the price to treat someone just in drugs alone for drug-resistant TB is more like $3,000. So you can see if we don't help countries get on top of this problem now, their future of their health budgets is going to be greatly destabilized. That's another reason why the time to move is now. We have less than 1,000 days until the Millennium Development Goals come due in December 31st, 2015. And while there has been excellent progress in the past decade, a lot more needs to be done. And one example of that is Africa. So Africa is not on track to cut TB deaths in half. And the reason for that are twofold. One of them is high rates of HIV, and the other one is the mining sector. So there's a lot of labor movement in the mining sector, where people from one country go to work in mines in South Africa, they get HIV, they get TB, they get sent home. They create burn marks in labor-sending communities. And this phenomenon of oscillating migration is what they call it. No one country can solve the problem of TB alone. And as countries develop and as countries get more wealth and have more middle class, people will travel more. Canadians already travel a great deal. That's one of the things that I like about Canada. That exposes them to risk when they go to countries with high rates of TB. But where there are high rates of TB and people are increasingly traveling, for example, to Canada, that will pose an increasing risk in the future. And the best way to get on top of that now in terms of domestic health security is to make those investments overseas that help countries sort out their TB problem. Because TB anywhere is TB everywhere.